So here we are, back from the break and ready to go for the second half of the season here in the APAC division in URL. We're readying up for round number 7 of this 12 race calendar. So as I said, into the second half of the season now, and readying up for a race around the classical Spa-Francorchamps in the Ardennes Forest. 18 drivers on the grid today, nearly full grid. Very happy to see that. Yeah, looking forward to it. Back racing, of course, after that pretty interesting Silverstone Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, where we saw Weirdo take his first win in URL, with Cramp solidifying his championship advantage over Plebs, those two finishing on the podium next to Weirdo. A couple of new names today for the second half of the season as well. So I'll take you through the grid in a moment when we are loading into qualifying, of course. 18 minutes of qualifying before a 22 lap race around Spa. And it looks all sunny at the moment. As I said, 18 drivers, 18 minutes. Who will be on pole after this? So taking you through the grid, we have Brady as the lone Mercedes today. He is a reserve, fitting in for Metz today. And then going on to Red Bull with also just one car running today. Only 2 teams that don't have both drivers present today. Plebs, of course, present. Championship contender. And he is not joined by his new teammate GeForce Crichton today, but hopefully his teammate will be there for the next race in Monza. Then Ferrari stays the same, of course, with Ashley and Cramp. Very strong lineup. Both of them have scored podiums and wins this season. McLaren, Toddy and Diano also still the same lineup. Renault have reserved Zummerman alongside their main driver Hannes Kroek. Then to AlphaTauri, Call of Redemption stays, and he has a new teammate in the form of Bear 2.0. His first race in URL today, so very interesting to see what those new guys can do. Of course, their pace is a big unknown, big question mark. So can they trouble the front runners and fight for wins as well? Racing Point, of course, stays the same as well, with Joseph and Ned Hammer. Then which team didn't we cover? Williams, Carson and Oz Formula, who is the second to start a flying lap. He is also a new guy making his debut today. And we have a third debutant here in the form of Jamie in the Alfa Romeo alongside RL9. He also will race for the first time in URL here in Spa today. So 3 new faces, a couple of reserves, but luckily most of our full-time grid is present, as first drivers are now starting their laps. I think Leo is first on the road, 29.9 through the first sector. It's a long lap here around Spa. Pole time will probably be around the low 41s or maybe even high 40s, as Joseph is known to be an absolute qualifying beast. Very high up in the time trial leaderboards, with his personal best being of 40.4. So let's see if he can replicate it, and let's see also if anyone can get anywhere near his time. Of course, Joseph will be the favorite for pole. Has been on pole the most times this season out of any driver. So let's see if he can add to that once more today, as Weirdo will be the first man to set a time through the bus stop chicane and up to the line. It's a pretty decent banker, I think. 41.4. As Os Formula slots into P2 with his medium tires, about a second behind Weirdo. As Joseph, there he is, and marginally quicker on his first run, 41.431. As RL9 slots into P4, and we have one of the Renaults coming. I think that's Zunguman. Yeah, just missed him, but he goes P5 with a solid first run as well. Just putting in the banker and hoping to improve from there. As Bear 2.0 puts in his first time to go P5. That hammer 17.6 through the middle sector is not that good, and indeed there wasn't a competitive lap time on 147, some 6 seconds off the pace of his teammate. As Cramp slots into P3 behind Joseph and Weirdo, 3/10 behind, as his teammate will now approach the bus stop chicane and dive back into the pits. Toddy is taking it very easy on his first run, and he will go again. So let's stay on board with maybe our most experienced man in this division, Toddy Rumble. Never stood on an URL podium, but he's been here from the very start. So going through Radion and Eau Rouge now, up the hill and along the Camel Straight, reaching top speeds of around 330 kilometers per hour. 29.9 through the first sector. That's a decent time, quicker than Weirdo actually. Tricky set of corners there now downhill. Very easy, as you can see, to lock the right front. Now into the corner with No Name. Fourth gear, runs a bit wide and he spins. Ooh! Luckily for him, all four wheels still attached to the car, but he just ran a bit wide out on the exit of that corner. Clipped the curb with his rear wheels and spun into the wall. So not the best start of qualifying for him. As Plevs has gone into P4 in the meantime, as most drivers have set their first lap times now. Ashley is straight back out again after he aborted his first run. As you have Cobalt Redemption now going for a lap. So let's stay on board with him and let's hope we can finish the lap, as he goes very wide through La Source. That will hamper his run flat out all the way to turn 4. Up through Eau Rouge, opening the DRS already before the kink in the straight. And it's a 30.2, a couple of tenths off in the first sector. Taking it very cautiously through that part. Brakes very deep, but doesn't lock up any front tires. Again a bit wide, missing the apex here. There's a yellow flag for a slow car up front through P1, 7th gear. Down to 5th for this long chicane. As Jamie gets out of the way. Now approaching the end of the second sector. Through Stevelo, and then it's flat out up towards the bus stop chicane. As we are already almost halfway through qualifying, of course, being such a long lap, it's you have less time to make runs, to do runs, to do laps as Cobalt Redemption runs up towards the line and slots into P8 with a 44.081. As Diano now is reaching the end of the lap to complete his first time lap. It's a decent time, I think, on the mediums. Yeah, and he goes P6, highest of any medium runner so far. 1.4 seconds off pole. And immediately he gets out of the way for Carson, who is starting his lap. Flat out up the hill. Weirdo is also on a lap, but he has invalidated. 9, slightly up on his first sector time. Carson at 29.8 in the first sector. That's a competitive first sector time. So in terms of the championship, Cramp is leading by 44 points over Joseph, with Plebs a further 6 points behind. Those three looking to battle it out for championship, with Weirdo only 8 points behind Plebs now after his win in Silverstone last time out. As Carson approaches the final sector. So yeah, Cramp really in a commanding lead in the championship. 14.0 for Carson is a decent lap time. Could be a new pole time if he can keep it together through the last sector. Sign on board, flat out through Blanchimont. Keeping in the third for the first part of the chicane, then shifting down to second to get the rotation, and it's only a 42.3. Gives him P5 at the moment. So none of our top 3 currently improving. As Os Formula is almost a second up on his time. So he could be troubling the front guys if he can nail that final chicane on his debut. Looking very handy so far in P6 and looking to improve on that. Get some good traction out of the final chicane, and it goes provisional pole with a 41.2, 2/10 quicker than anyone so far. And the new Williams driver making his mark with just 6 minutes on the clock. Jamie goes into P10 as Bear down by 2/10 and not improving. Thought he is improving, but he is also invalidated his lap. Now on the mediums, as the same as his teammate. Weirdo is also improving now on his second flyer, and he just misses out on the time set by Os Formula, just a couple of hundreds behind. Now goes into P2, also 41.2. Just 27 thousandths, as you can see, off pole. Cramp, and also going for it again. Also up by 2/10, but that won't be enough to give him any positional improvements, as he is 3/10 behind Joseph at the moment. Yeah, this man has been by far the most consistent out of any driver, as he peels off into the pits to prepare for one final run. So at the moment that's what most drivers are doing, as AS Formula takes a very interesting line to get out of the way of the AlphaTauri. As Bear Point is looking maybe to improve, and he does by 6.5 tenths, only gains in one spot though. As Ned Hammer is now also improving by a second in his first sector, so let's stay on board with this man, as he's one of the only guys out on track at the moment. 5th gear through here, keeps it neat and tidy. Now running down the hill towards Puan, keeping it in 8th gear actually, not shifting down to 2nd or 7th. Backing around the 50-meter board down to 5th gear. Missing the apex slightly on the second part here. Down to 4th. 1.5 seconds up. Let's see if he will finish this lap. As Stoddy in the meantime has gone into P9 on the mediums. Half a second behind his teammate. And Hammer will finish his lap. And goes P7. As Joseph has retired from the session. On the Camel Straight, a bit strange to see, if I'm honest. And he won't be fighting for another pole. He'll be starting from 3rd at most. The man who's been on pole for half of the races so far will not be starting anything higher than P3. As we have our top 6 all on outlaps at the moment. Ashley in the meantime has improved to 7th, taking that place away from Ned Hammer. BP is on a push lap on the medium tires, 14.2. It's just 2 tenths slower than, for example, Carson, so that would be around P8, P9, where Ned Hammer and Deanna are at the moment. Interesting to see that some drivers are qualifying on the mediums. Maybe that's an indication of some rain later on in the race, or maybe they're just going for the alternative strategy. But here in Belgium, tire wear isn't that high, as BP slots into that P8 I was talking about. But yeah, here tire wear isn't much of an issue. Soft medium should be fairly easy without any virtual safety cars or safety cars. So maybe they're just going for the alternative strategy, or they're expecting rain at the end. And just as in Silverstone we saw Weirdo and Cram do, go onto those mediums and stretch them until the rain hits and essentially save an entire pit stop. As we are now on the final runs. As Cramp is up half a tenth through the first sector. I think he's the lead driver here. Followed by Plefs, Carson, Weirdo and Formula. So that's the order they'll arrive in at the checkered flag, as it's almost the end of qualifying. Cramp 2.5 tenths up through the middle sector. As Plefs is going towards the end of the second sector now. Let's see how much he is improving by, as he invalidates, as he was almost half a second up, but he runs wide on the exit of turn 14, and that's his qualifying done as well. As Cramp now through the final chicane keeps it neat, keeps it tidy. What can he do? He jumps ahead of his championship rival Joseph and slots into P3. As Weirdo is in the second sector now. Plefs is done. He won't be improving on his time. As Carson is 1.5 tenths up through the middle sector. Can he snatch that P5 from Plefs? Yes, he can. 42.0 gives Carson P5. and Weirdo is improving. What can Oz Formula do? He improves by 1/10 to go 141.122. So he solidifies his pole position. Can Weirdo change anything about it, or will it be a debut pole position for the Williams driver? Weirdo runs up to the line and he snatches it away, a 40.9. First driver to go into the 140s at the very last moment. Snatches that pole position, and after that win in Silverstone he keeps his great momentum and takes pole position here in Spa. So that's it, that's qualifying, and despite the improvement by Alfa Formula, it's Weirdo who takes pole position 1.5 tenths quicker than the Williams driver, with Cramp snatching P3 away from Joseph at the end as well. And Jamie, I didn't even see that, but Jamie, the other debutant, is in P6 ahead of Plebs. So Plebs, with that invalidation, really shot himself in the foot, and he'll be starting from 7th on the grid alongside Ashley, with Carson and Jamie in front on the 3rd row, with BP the only man in the top 10 qualifying on mediums. That Hammer rounding out that top 10 just ahead of Diano RL9. Toddy, Rady, Cobalt, Zumuman, Bear 2.0 and Honest Crook the only man without a time in 18th. So that's qualifying. As we are now onto the grid and preparing for the formation lap. Looks all dry and sunny at the moment. So yeah, Weirdo continuing his great form, and with the likes of Plebs down in P7, he'll be hoping to make some improvements in the championship, being only 8 points behind the Red Bull driver, who has had some tough luck this season in his last 2 races. But the top 2 in the championship are alongside each other on the 2nd row of the grid, as we are underway for the formation lap. So of course top 10 all starting on the tyres they qualified on, with behind them both McLarens and both Renaults starting on the medium tyres, with Bear 2.0, Cobalt, Rady and RL9 opting for the soft tyres. So as I said earlier, it's a pretty straightforward strategy here around Belgium if it all stays dry, soft to medium, or for some medium to soft. So no surprise to see all cars on either one of those 2 tires, no one opting for the hards from the start. We might see some switch to those white wall tires if there's an incident on lap 1 and someone picks up damage and has to box for a new front wing. Those hards should be able to make it to the end of the race from lap 1. That's how low the tire wear is here. But we'll keep an eye out for this man in P2 as well, Alfa Formula, on his debut on the front row of the grid. He had pole until the very last second of qualifying, where Weirdo snatched it away from him. And, he showed some great pace. Let's see if he can keep that pace going throughout the entirety of the race. But with people like Cramp and Joseph behind him, it will be very tough to keep that 2nd place. As we know, those guys are rapid in race conditions. With Jamie, the other debutant, as Joseph spins on the formation lap. Now I don't think that will be much of an issue in terms of any damage, as he's in the middle of the racetrack. But his tires will be a bit shot now, so interesting scenes here. as he was just warming up his tires and just lost the control. But yeah, Jamie in P6, as I was saying, also solid qualifying on his debut. And for Plebs and Ashley, a bit of a more disappointing qualifying, down in 7th and 8th. As we are lining up on the grid. As also Joseph has found his way back into his grid position. So all 18 cars on the start-finish straight, ready for 22 laps around Spa. As the green flags are being waved, it's 3, 4, 5 red lights around number 7, and it's lights out and away we go. Good start from Weirdo and an even better one from Graham. It seems as he is already trying to look down the inside as Formula keeps his place in P2 with Carson pressurizing Joseph. Ashley making a great start, as is BP, with Plebs falling down the order now in P10 side by side with Ned Hammer through a Rouge. As Plebs is now under threat from Deano as well. Dreadful start from the Red Bull driver, but it's Weirdo sitting in front as he has to defend from Formula, who's going around the outside, side by side through this section. But Weirdo keeps it just about ahead as he has to defend again. Cuts the Williams driver off and has to fight with everything he has on the first lap. There's a yellow flag in sector 2 as we have Ned Hammer going for a spin. I think that was after contact with Plebs, as those two are running very close together. No damage it looks like for the Racing Point. But so the top 5 still the same. Ashley making a great start, as FBP, with Jamie and Plebs both losing 2 places off the start. And Deano now into the top 10 as well after that spin from that Hammer. All 18 cars still in competition as Cobalt has to defend from Toddy here. Does Cobalt have any front wing damage? Doesn't look like it, but he is falling back a bit. He does have wing damage on his right end plate, so that's why he's falling back already. As Weirdo keeps his P1 off the start, but he had to fight very hard for it, as Oz Formula was all over the back of him. So Joseph, despite that spin on the formation lap, retaining P4, looking a bit sketchy at the start, but he kept Carson at bay. And the top 5 already creating a bit of a gap to Ashley, who has got BP and Jamie right behind him. As Ned Hammer gets past Bear 2.0 to start his charge back through the grid. We know he has some solid race pace as well, maybe not as good as his teammate, but he does have some great racecraft and race pace. He showed that, for example, at France, when he came from last to P4, as we have had some fighting going on here with Hannes Cook and Cobalt Redemption, who's still out with that front wing damage. Has been passed by Toddy already, and now Hannes Cook is trying to find a way past the AlphaTauri. Around the outside here, not gonna work. As Cobalt runs wide, and now Hannes Cook takes the racing line and gets up into P14 with his teammate now right behind as well, and that's an easy pass as Cobalt Redemption now realizes there's no point fighting these drivers, as Ned Hammer gets a really good run on Zungerman around the outside of the Bishop chicane, but Zungerman brakes very late, maybe a bit too late, as Ned Hammer tries a different line and gets a really good exit out of there, as Cobalt does box. As we are on lap 3, so DRS will be enabled. With the top 5 still running close together. Ashley 1.2 seconds behind Carson now, so As there's a yellow flag and Honest Crook has crashed on the entry to Radion, I think, if I see it correctly on the mini-map. And there's a virtual safety car. Code Redemption just coming out of the pit, so let's stay on board with him to see what happened with Honest Crook. As it's actually on the top of our rouge, excuse me. As he's, crashed on top of our rouge. I don't know if there was any contact with any other car, but he's the first man out of the race. Unfortunate for him. And virtual safety car won't impact any strategies, I don't think, as it will probably end before these front runners reach the bus stop chicane. As Weirdo is trying to gain as much time as we are back underway, and Plebs misjudges his restarting, picks up a drive-through penalty, so it's going from bad to worse after a miserable start to the race. He got back up into P8. Oh, as there's Ashley. Ashley's lost his front wing. What happened there? As Plebs immediately serves his drive-through penalty, and Ashley will also join him in the pits. I think Ashley was just on his own, so he must have just lost it, as Rady also joins him in the pits. So some big names already outside of the top 10, with Plebs having to serve the drive-through, as Oz Formula really closing up to Weirdo now. Picking the outside line once again, as he did on lap 1, but this time he's a bit more in front. But Weirdo once again keeps his nose alongside and has the inside line for the second part of that corner complex and stays ahead. But by how much? By just the skin of his teeth. As Cramp and Joseph just sitting behind, waiting. Those two, of course, 1 and 2 in the championship, so they'll not take as much risks as maybe the two guys in front, as Joseph picks up his first 3-second time penalty. Of course, those time penalties cost him in France, as he dropped down to P5 after finishing P2 on the road, and he picks up one once again very early on in the race, as the top 5 are starting to break away from the rest of the pack, with BP now in P6 after Ashley and Plebs both had their problems. So BP running on the mediums, looking very decent, must be said. If he can keep up some sort of pace with the front runners, he'll of course have an advantage later on in the race if he switches to the softer of the two compounds. As Carson is losing a bit of touch with top cars, it seems. 1.7 now behind, as he's already running very low on ERS, down to his last 10%. So he really had to push to stick with the top 4, but it looks like he's losing touch now, as Oz Formula now is going down the inside at the end of the Camel Straight, and he does complete the move this time around, and he moves into P1. Weirdo unable to fight back at the exit, and the Williams driver up into P1. Carson is really losing a lot of time. I don't know if there's any issue. Doesn't look like he's got any front wing damage, but he's rapidly falling off the pace now. Of course, being low on ERS doesn't help, but he's losing around a second a lap, and this is playing perfectly into the hands of BP, who has got Jamie and Diano right behind him as well. Diano once again looking solid as ever, also on the medium tires. So him and BP are looking for late charges in this race when they switch to soft compound, with his teammate Todino also in the top 10, and Hammer in the meantime back up into P11. Plebs after that drive-through down to P14, having to fight his way back through. Of course, when surfing a drive-through you can't make a tire change, so he's still on those softs he started the race on. So this is his genuine position, as actually after his crash switched to another set of soft tires, so he will also have to make another pit stop, as Jamie picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. So weirdo, as Jamie gets past BP actually, as there's a yellow flag and BP is spun. That's why Jamie has gotten past. BP, did he make a mistake or did he make contact with the Alfa Romeo? I don't know. But he is now down to P10 after looking, just talking about him one lap before, looking very comfortable in P6. Now down to P10 behind Toddy, as Plebs makes the move on Bear 2.0. But yeah, I was going to say that Weirdo is really looking really good on his ERS management. Almost an entirely full battery, with the cars behind him all on about 50%. So Weirdo just saving a bit of pace as he is closing up to us Formula, but probably won't go for the move here, as we are approaching the end of lap 6. Yeah, so Formula on about 60%. Cramp and Joseph about the same. Joseph a little bit more down as he tries to have a look down into La Source. Keeps his nose just intact. This Formula trying to break the slipstream on every single straight he can. Cramp is really close to Weirdo now, as he's using a lot of ERS. The Weirdo is doing the same as he is approaching Formula, but he won't be able to make the move. And it stays as it is, as close as it can be. So yeah, Weirdo of course in a place where he wants to be, in the DRS of fast Formula, being able to save his ERS, his fuel, just using the DRS he gets from the Williams to keep Cramp behind, with Cramp using a lot of ERS on that last straight to try and overtake Weirdo, now down to 40%. As Diano also picks up a 3-second time penalty. So that's 6 cars now. As Os Formula is the first of the top guys to make a pit stop, as we watch this battle between Diano and RL9. Will the Alfa Romeo, he does have a little look, but Diano completes the move. As BP has gotten past Toddy, who has spun on the exit of the chicane, the bus stop chicane. Really awkwardly placed. But yeah, Os Formula out onto the track again. First of the top 5 to make a pit stop onto the medium tires. With Jamie also making a pit stop, as there's a yellow flag for RL9, who has spun on the top of Arouge. Everything's kicking off right now here on lap 8, as Plebs is now closing up to RL9, also with a lot of ERS left. RL9, yeah, with a little bit less front wing than Plebs, not able to put up any fight. Plebs back up into the points now. So let's see if the other top guys react. Of course, Weirdo, he'll be able to push using his ERS. He's saved, putting out a 9/10 gap to Cramp at the moment, who has still got Joseph right behind him. So yeah, Os Formula in pretty decent clean air, I'd say. Let's see if he can bridge the gap to the other three, and let's see if he can make the undercut work, as all three cars are into the pits. As Carson takes a very interesting line into the pits as well. As there's a virtual safety car. I don't know about 4, but will that hamper Formula? He's just coming around La Source now. And he's behind Cramp. He had to slow down on that straight, where you gain the most time on the people in the pits. And this virtual safety car came out of the worst possible moment for Os Formula, who's now behind, not only behind Weirdo, but also behind Cramp, with BP in between there as well, as of course now loads of people making their stops. RL9 having to serve some sort of penalty, it would seem. I think Plebs just missed the pit entry, as he is still out on his old softs. So once again, very unlucky for the Red Bull driver. But I don't know what the virtual safety car was called out for. Of course, Toddy spun as Plebs nearly gets a drive-through penalty again, really slowing down on the apex of that downhill right-hander, losing a lot of time to Carson behind. Carson interestingly has switched to the hard tires, whereas everyone else has made a switch to the mediums. So yeah, that's I think there was a lot of things going on. I didn't catch everything, but what I do know is that Diano is now leading, 2.5 seconds in front of Weirdo. Of course, him and BP still have to make a pit stop, so they're pretty much out of sync with everyone here. As Os Formula is all over the back of Cramp, trying to get back into that net P2, of course. Ooh, a little bit of contact in the braking zone. This Cramp is really slowing up for some reason. As Os Formula is down the inside of the source, and it's getting a bit frosty now. Not sure what happened there on the exit of the bus stop chicane. It looked like Cramp just didn't accelerate, as Os Formula now flies past on the straight, and as does Joseph, and he puts Cramp into the wall. Is there damage to the Ferrari? As Joseph went past him, and there is damage on the left hand side of that Ferrari's wing. Joseph just, I don't know if he swerved across Cramp or if there just was a gap that suddenly closed, but our championship leader has got front wing damage. Really interesting sequence of corners there, as Weirdo is all out in front at the moment. We benefited from that virtual safety car when he came out of the pits, as BP picks up his second penalty of the race. So Weirdo now closing in on Diano, and he will be soon back into the lead, with Os Formula a good 2.5 seconds behind him, with another car in between the two as well. But yeah, Cramp really losing a lot of time now. Let's see if he decides to head into the pits, and he does. So that's really unfortunate. I don't know if there's anyone to blame for that incident, or if it was just maybe a bit of lag, latency issues. But he boxes and goes into the softs again. 11 laps to go, should be able to make it to the end, as Plebs also makes his stop onto the mediums. And Plebs is actually out ahead of Cramp. Plebs, after having to serve the drive-through and getting really unlucky with the first virtual safety car, now finds himself ahead of our championship leader. but they're down in P9 and P10, so Cramp will have to try and get past Pless as soon as he can to make his soft tires work. As Rady gets past Cobalt for P11, just behind. So everyone apart from BP and Diano have made their first stops. As Weirdo is now overtaking Diano for the on-track lead of the race. And Os Formula has gone past BP in the meantime as well, with Joseph now sending one down the inside at the bus stop chicane. And they're side by side as Os Formula does put in the fastest lap of the race, trying to catch back up to Weirdo. As Joseph gets past the Haas driver. Let's see if he decides to go for it again on this long straight, or if he just decides to stay behind him. As there's a yellow flag in sector 3. That's actually once again at the same straight. He crashed a couple of laps before. Once again a spin for the Ferrari man, as he gets a 10-second time penalty. I don't know why, but yeah, really unfortunate race for both Ferraris now today, as he is without a front wing once again. So that's the third front wing that's broken on one of the two Ferrari cars. As Cramp gets past Plefs this time round. Now he has to catch up 9 seconds to Nat Hammer, who's back up into P8 after that early spin, as Ashley retires in the pit lane. He's had enough of it. Really tough race for him. I think him and RL9 might have made contact, as RL9 is also in for front wing repairs. As Os Formula now trying to get past, as there's once again a yellow flag. A lot of incidents going on. It's the Mercedes of Rady this time, who has lost part of his front wing. But yeah, Os Formula getting past Diano for P2. Rady also picks up a 3-second time penalty for good measure. Os Formula down to his last 10% of ERS, and Diano just effortlessly glides back past. And this is really hampering Os Formula, who's also picked up a time penalty, it seems. Yes, he does have a 3-second time penalty. So Weirdo looking very comfortable in the lead right now. Still on a lot of ERS as well, as Diano is costing Os Formula a lot of time here, as he's trying to make a move down the inside of Pouan. And he does make it work. Great racing here between Os Formula and Diano, who tries to get back at the Williams, but you can see the difference in grip between 12 leveled and 4 leveled mediums, as Diano will probably be in 1 or 2 laps from now. So here's a yellow flag in sector 3. And RL9 has managed to spin again. Very much bottom at the moment. So near the end of lap 13. 9 laps to go. Diano still staying out, as does BP. As Carson picks up his first time penalty of the day. Interesting choice from him once again to go onto the hard tires, with Jamie now closing up on him. Cramp is showing a lot of pace, catching up to Nat Hammer, and he is pulling Plevs along with him. Plebs managing to stick within 1 second of the Ferrari. As Joseph now gets past the Ano at the end of the camera straight. So the gap between Weirdo and Os Formula, 2.4 seconds now. And with that 3-second time penalty for the Williams as well, it's looking like a very comfortable win for Weirdo at the moment. If he can maintain this gap, if he can just make sure that Os Formula doesn't get too close to him. And it could be a second win in a row here for Weirdo. And with Cramp down in P9, it could mean a lot of things for the championship. And maybe Weirdo can put himself really into the fight for the title. Os Formula is pushing 1.1 seconds ahead of Joseph now, so Joseph doesn't have any DRS. As the Ano on the end of lap 15 decides to box, as BP drifts across the bus stop chicane to also get into the pits. So let's see where they come out. Of course, both of them will switch to the soft tire. As Ned Hammer is now rounding the final corner. And the Ano is miles ahead actually. Will be comfortably ahead of the Ano as he is out of the pits in P6. Brilliant strategy from him, showing great pace on the mediums. BP does come out just in front actually of Cramp and Plebs. As Cramp is almost pushing him through Eau Rouge. And Plebs also getting past. Oh, as there's a bit of contact between the two. And Plebs actually gets past Cramp. So, and now BP tries to come back at Cramp. So instead of gaining 1 place, it looks like Cramp has lost 1. And he does, he's down to P10. Plebs making the most of that. Probably had a lot of ERS saved up, sitting behind Cramp, and used it to get past both BP and the Ferrari driver. Now they're just 1.9 seconds behind Ned Hammer. So Plebs looking to salvage some decent points from this race after a disastrous opening few laps. Showing some decent pace on the mediums now. As Cobalt Redemption picks up a time penalty, his first of the race. And Weirdo is stretching his legs out in front now. Gap has grown to 3 seconds. But Joseph now back in DRS range of Os Formula. Will he make a move straight away for P2? He is gaining. He's going down the inside. And going side by side. Oh no, 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 no. Os Formula spins. Luckily he had quite a big gap behind to Carson, but once again contact after battling. A shame that we see so many drivers tang with each other. And Os Formula now 6 seconds behind Joseph. And that looks like the end of his charge at P1. But still, a podium in his first race would be very good. A very decent showing from him. As the Ano is now closing in on Jamie in P5. Another solid drive by the Alfa Romeo driver. As Plebs is pushing to get within the ERS of Ned Hammer. Low on ERS. And if you can get within that 1 second, you might be able to defend from the cars behind on the fresh soft tires. BP is trying to make a move now And he does get ahead on the apex of Blanchimont. Will Plef send one back down the inside? He thinks of it. But stays behind for now as BP does get in a bit deep. Just 5 laps to go. Of course BP does have 6 seconds worth of time penalties. 9 seconds already now. As Jamie is closing in on Carson rapidly, Carson hasn't been able to make those hard tires work. Jamie and Diano could soon pass the Williams and move up into P4 and P5 respectively. BP picks up his 4th time penalty of the day, now up to 12 seconds. As Os Formula also picks up another time penalty and is into the pits actually. Don't know why you would do that. He'll drop to P6 behind these 3 drivers. And now suddenly this fight is turning into a fight for the podium. Of course, Os Formula will catch up to this pack. Just comes out ahead of Ned Hammer. So he does have a lot of clean air in front to push. But he is giving up a podium position to make a late charge. 4 laps to go. He is low on fuel as well. But now suddenly the other new guy, Jamie, in his first race here, he can suddenly smell a podium, but so can Diano. Of course, got a podium after a penalty for a driver at the Australian Grand Prix as he gets around the outside of Jamie actually. Nice move, Jamie giving him the space to do so. But now Diano is in the best position to overtake Carson. Both these 3 drivers on 3-second time penalties, as Toddy is making his way up the field as well, now into P11, but he has got a 30-second gap to Crampton P10, who is struggling a bit on his soft tires now, with BP getting past Ned Hammer. So let's keep an eye on BP and Os Formula if they can catch up to Carson, Diano and Jamie. And Diano, he will have to pass Carson at the earliest of opportunities to bridge a bit of a gap in case those cars do catch up. He does have a lot of ERS as Carson goes very wide. But Diano stays behind, wants the DRS as the detection point has been passed. Carson running low on ERS, Diano on pressure on softer tires, and he glides past into P3. As the gap between Weirdo and Joseph stabilized a couple of laps ago, still around 4 seconds now. As Plebs moves up into P8, which will be P7 after the penalties from BP get applied. As Ned Hammer gets a penalty straight after being overtaken, and that puts Cramp in at P9. So not the best of days for our championship leader, and with Weirdo and Joseph P1 and P2 he will lose a lot of points, but of course, as I said before, he leads by 44 points, so he can afford to have a worse race, a bad race, and let's hope he got all of his bad luck out of the way for the rest of the season as Os Formula is catching up. He does have 6 seconds worth of penalties though, so with only 2 laps to go, it does look like a bit of a wrong decision. But maybe his tires were done after that spin, after contact with Joseph, as he is catching up to Carson and Jamie. Diano in the meantime has just cleanly driven away from Carson, who's really struggling on those hard tires, which should at this point in the race maybe be a bit faster actually than the mediums, but Jamie is keeping up nicely as Cramp decides to make another pit stop, his 3rd pit stop of the race, and was a bit stationary, bit too long stationary there, but he will come out still in P10 as he had the gap to Toddy, as Jamie is now trying to make a move on Carson. Bit of contact once again through that part of the track, but Carson keeping on for dear life, and his teammate is now right on the back of these two as well. We have to remember that as Jamie just lets Os Formula by, those two, maybe they know each other, I'm not sure. Of course they're not in the same team, but Jamie realizing he's not in any position to fight with Os Formula, who is on new softs, and he knows if he can stay within 3 seconds of the Williams, he will get that place back. And now Carson Sully has his teammate behind him. As we are on lap 21, just 2 laps to go. So Os Formula will get past Carson here, and he'll have 2 laps to get a 3-second gap to there's rain. I think I saw some spots of, yeah, there is. Look at the halo. It's gone from sunny at the start to more and more overcast throughout this race, and in the last 2 laps, on lap 21, we suddenly have drops of rain falling down here in Belgium. Won't be enough for intermediates, of course, as we're nearly at the end of the race, as Os Formula gets past his teammate. But I don't think it will be enough to get him back up into that P3, as he has got a 2-second gap to Diano and 3 seconds worth more of penalties, as BP gets his 5th penalty of the race, as the gaps are slowly converging into each other, with Carson being, of course, the bottleneck in that whole process on those hard tires. Weirdo is approaching the final lap of the race. Had to fight for it on the start, lost the lead midway through the race, but he maybe got a bit lucky with that virtual safety car when he made his pit stop. The undercut from Os Formula didn't work, and that left him comfortably in the lead. After a battle with the Williams, Joseph got him into P2 as Os Formula does put in the fast lap of the race, as he is closing in on the NO, but as we are in the last lap, it won't be enough. He'll have to gain 4 seconds this lap on the McLaren. He is trying to bridge the gap to Carson, 2.3 seconds now, so if he can just increase that gap by 7/10 over this lap, he'll stay in P4. Of course those softs do help when the track is getting a bit damp as it is now, with the extra grip they are providing. And yeah, gap has already grown to 2.8, so it says yellow flag for Rady, who has retired on the last lap. Not a good race from him, but yeah, Os Formula will finish in P4, but as he is closing up to the NO, he won't get that podium position back. So essentially he's lost 2 points and the podium. Of course P4 in the fastest lap will give you 13 points. The now in P3 holding on just about. But this man wins his second race in a row. Weirdo wins in Belgium. Joseph crosses the line in P2 and now we wait to see if Diano can finish P3 on the road as well. Formula is trying everything. Oh, don't spin each other out. That would be really unfortunate. But Diano holds on. He would have gotten P3 anyways, but he does also finish P3 on the road. Carson stays in P5. Jamie finishes P6 on his debut with BP, and all those penalties dropping him down to P8 eventually. And Plebs actually gets ahead of Jamie, staying out of any trouble, not picking up any track limit penalties. Plebs gets P6, and Cramp actually did pit for a new set of soft tires to get the fastest lap, but he doesn't pick it up. So it's just the 1 point for our championship leader today, as he loses 24 points to Weirdo and 17 to Joseph. But Nethammer also just about finishing ahead of BP. Toddy missing out on the points in P11. And Cobalt in P12. Actually has some wing damage. Zungaman will finish P13. Bert Moido on his debut will finish P14 ahead of RL9, who has had a couple of spins today. And Grady actually an honest crook, not finishing the race. So yeah, that's it. That's round 7. And it's back-to-back wins for Weirdo. So here you have it, your podium. Weirdo wins it in front of Joseph, and Diano picks up his second podium of the season. So there you have it, the final race results. Weirdo wins for the second time in a row. Joseph second, Diano just ahead of Oz Formula, who had a great debut race, but unfortunately finishes P4 just ahead of Carson. Plefs, after staying clean of any penalties, finishes P6 ahead of Jamie, who had another solid debut race. Nethammer in P8, BP after those 15 seconds worth of penalties drops down to P9, with Cramp, our championship leader, down in P10, with Toddy, Cobalt, Zungaman, Bear 2.0 and RL9 not making the points, and Rady, actually an honest crook, not finishing the race. So yeah, round 7 is done and dusted, and we'll be back in 7 days time for round number 8 at the Temple of Speed in Italy when we go to Monza. See you all then.